Hello again, I'm Sam, and for the tens of you that have watched me on YouTube before, this might be the BMW that you know me for, but I have a new one that I want to start working on with you guys, and whoa. So this is where it all started the day that I bought my 1997 BMW M3 sedan. At this point, it had 283,000 miles on it, and a lot of those miles were fairly apparent, mostly in the front end. And whether it was apparent because of those miles or because of human input, some things needed helping and changing before I even wanted to drive this car. So the main things being via human input, these slightly too large black wheels that weren't my favorite, rock chips that were touched up with very mismatched paint, and this large strip of black vinyl on the hood. Not to mention headlights that happen to look pretty gross. So underneath that black vinyl, we found what looked like an attempt at some sort of wet sanding and then had just been covered up and forgotten about. And again, those nasty rock chips with mismatched touch-up paint. First up, obviously, was washing the front end, mainly the hood, just to prep it for polishing work. From here, we also did some clay barring to remove any contaminants from the paint. First addressing, because this stuff could clog up any polishing pads I use, trying to remove the touch-up paint. Luckily, this stuff, when wet, was actually pretty malleable, and in using a very soft, non-marring SOS pad, it came right off, which was great. So from there, we washed again and moved on to a test spot on the hood using Turtle Wax's One and Done compound from their Hybrid Solutions Pro line, and a microfiber pad, one of the more aggressive pads you can use. And although this did create some good progress, it was just obvious there were some scratches that were too deep to cut through initially. So we had to take a couple steps back, and that step back is just in wet sanding, below what you would do with compounding or polishing. And with any car that is two-stage paint and is old with a lot of miles, we started light because you're worried about going through the clear coat. And again, it doesn't hurt to start with a very, very light wet sand just to make sure you don't go too deep and cut too much too soon.
I'll have to go deeper again. I decided to wet sand with 3000 grit sandpaper, then I switched pads to the orange foam pad, which can basically be a finisher because I'm trying to do this in one step and done. And it's turning out great. So this is the main area that's more or less complete. And again, it's not perfect. It's a Sam Hurley classic 80%er. So much better than it was before. Again, not quite halfway because I need to go back and do spots like this, but a huge improvement on where it was, and having the car actually match in sheen throughout the rest of the panels. Okay, we're done. I assume you can see it looks a little better. I'm very excited about it. Not perfect everywhere. This area, as you had seen before, was a lot worse. It required 2 to 3,000 grit wet sands. But once I knocked through the scratches enough, it came out pretty good. So this is a huge step in the right direction. Man, this feels good. Red M3, man.
So finally, this thing was looking like an E36 M3 that I've always wanted to own, aside from a number of little elements. But regardless, the next step was washing the whole car and hitting it with the spray wax. From here, it was time to move on to the next piece I didn't love, and that was too dark of window tint with not a very good job done as well. I've worked in this industry before. I believe in window tint, but I also believe it is something you have to stylize, especially when it comes to vintage vehicles.
All right.
So that work was up next.
Today is tint removal day. So the tint on here is way too dark for my liking. Fronts aren't too bad. The rears are what are probably limo tint. So we're gonna go through the process of removing that. So back windows are always kind of unique on their own. I used to work at a tint shop that I'm currently working at now. There's Jake over there. We're kind of refreshing the memory on some of this stuff, but what you have to do for a rear window, we're using just some old tint liner here. Cut it to the shape of the rear window, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna transfer it to the inside facing the same way. And on the inside of the window, we're We're going to spray a bunch of water, and then we're going to use that liner to hold that water against the old tint. We're going to put the car out in the sun. We can even see the different shades here. Put it out in the sun with the liner and the water resting against the tint. And what I just learned, I didn't even know when I used to work here, is what happens is the water then being held by the liner against the tint will transfer back through the tint and help lift the adhesive off the back window. Because the issue with the back window, as you can see here and probably can imagine, is when you're removing adhesive and tint from this window, you can't mess with the defrost lines. Those are electrical elements that will heat up the back window. Obviously you don't have them on other windows, so you can use razor blades and scrape up those windows however you want. These ones, to maintain your defroster, you can't do that. I'll show you a little bit of the film here as well. When you're looking at film and what you're trying to see on if you got a good job or not, or little things in the corners, call them dust specks or dirt nibs, that don't allow the film to sit against the glass perfectly. I think we can see some on the edge here too. So you can see it's lifting pretty badly there. And then also gaps. See the light gaps where the tint is not completely covering the window. So we're gonna solve that today by having a better tint job done and by using a lighter film.
So once again here, what you're seeing is just that clear liner holding water up against the existing window tint. What I'm doing at this point is actually putting more water in between it because some of it will obviously go through the tint. You got to add a little bit more. From here, after about 20 or so minutes in the sun, Jake and I get to peeling it and pulling away as to not let it rip off too fast and leave adhesive behind. And we are happy to say that Jake and I managed to not leave any adhesive behind, which is always a really good moment in the tint industry when you're stripping stuff and you get a clean peel. So from here, we took it back inside, dealt with all the side windows just using razor blades and soapy water. Jake then applied the new film. I went with a 50% tint on all of the side and rear windows and then a 70% film on the front windshield to keep it legal. And also did a very high performance ceramic film. So again, a little bit more stylized, even looking nothing too dark, but still getting all the benefits of tint in that I have the heat rejection, I have the UV rejection, and yeah. So as you may notice, hint, fog light covers. There are still some pieces on this car that need attention in the paint category. We have this oxidized trim piece on the back trunk, and then a couple of pieces that I could fill in on the front, all of which I wanted to repaint or paint match to the car. So first up was scuffing those so they could accept paint properly, and obviously primer as well in my homemade paint booth with a piece of cardboard above it so that I can protect from dust. Next up is paint matched BMW Hell Rot Red and this out of focus shot of the clear coat that I used. So with this stuff, I can't stress enough getting this from an automotive paint store specifically, or at least knowing the products to buy, because the right materials, specifically in paint, will go a very long way in finish quality and longevity. Obviously, once dried, I'm left with a little bit of orange peel and stuff that I have to then address. From there, luckily, it's actually not too hard. So dealing with wet sanding and knocking that orange peel down to a flat surface in prep for some polishing then allows me to get a great finish. So past wet sanding with about 2,000 and 3,000 grit sandpaper, I moved on to Turtle Wax's Hybrid Solutions One and Done compound again, and as you'll see here in a second, are left with a pretty good result, again, especially for a do-it-yourselfer job in your garage. Yeah, not bad. Pretty stoked with that. It is an incredible finish, and I'm super stoked on that. Next on the list was more painting, and that came in the realm of the wheels. I did not want to continue on with those black wheels, and luckily with this car came the original stock wheels. They're called M Contours. They were in really bad shape. I knocked down some of the curb rash with a small grinder and also sanded them and prep for paint. So again, we're starting here with primer. You also notice that the primers are a little bit different color in that shot. I actually ran out of certain primers. So from there, we moved on to the paint matched BMW Silver, the stock color, but obviously needing a fresh coat of it. And it was also cold out at this point, so you'll see me here using a heated hair dryer to speed up the drying process, but also probably introduce a little bit of dust into my paint. Next up is an in-focus shot of the clear coat that I used, and upon drying, you'll see the finish turned out pretty well right out of the gate. These I actually ended up not having to do much sanding and polishing afterwards, but made sure to give them good time to cure, especially in sunlight, getting some nice UV rays to harden up that clear coat and paint. And from there, moved on to getting tires mounted and being done with that job. And that's a great step in the right direction. Next up are front end things once again. So we have both the headlights that are in very odd condition, which I'll get into, and then the front bumper that is very oxidized and actually has no clear coat left. So the headlights look like they've been sanded before, and I don't know if it was an attempt to try to polish, but the end result, or what I have now, is very, very not good, ugly, gross, whatever word you want to pick. Regardless, luckily I had a parts car for this, and the headlights on that parts car were in really good condition, because the headlights on the M3 were, in my opinion, not savable. The plastic was warped and it just wasn't good. So I pulled the headlights off of the parts car and was just able to swap them on the M3. They were already pretty shiny and did the trick. So from here, I had to do a simple alignment of the headlights, which if some E36 guys probably know is kind of tedious and weird, but in the end works out great. Just align with all the body panels and have proper gapping. So both the front, right and left were able to be swapped in. Simple as that. Remove the weird LED kit that threw codes inside the car and swap just to factory halogens, clean and clear. So next up was the bumper. I started with cleaning prep on this to make sure any dirt left in the cracks wouldn't bleed out and contaminate the polishing pad and then create swirls and ruin the job I'm trying to do. Then I went to wet sanding just to knock down this paint a little bit and get rid of any dead paint. Again, there's no clear coat left on this paint, but you can still polish paint regardless of if it's clear coat. You just have to change your expectations. So for one, expectation was having paint left over in the pad. But the goal here was to get it polished and make it look much better, because I have a lot deeper goals beyond this, and this was a good start.
Terrible lighting right now, but the bumper got all polished out so it's not so oxidated. Again, it's not perfect. This is a original bumper with 283 or 84,000 miles on it, so it can only be so perfect. And then again, these headlights here that are looking tri-colored because of my polarizer, also looking nice after being swapped in. What I'm going to do now is touch up little pieces like this that are very obviously not painted. There's lots of scrapes and stuff on the bottom side, so it's not perfect. I'm going to do a little bit on this one as well, just because it's kind of high up. Again, really high mileage bumper. It's not going to be perfect, but little things like this, cleaning that up will go a long way to the eye, you can say, for a 10-foot vehicle. Well, not a vehicle that's 10 feet long, but vehicle you're looking at from 10 feet away. Just got the wheels that were sold on the car off, and also found something a little bit not exciting. They had been rubbing on the struts pretty badly, as you can see. I think the majority of it had already run its course because I couldn't hear or tell. And maybe this is a little bit of where the vibration was coming from, but it didn't really sound or feel obvious to that. But I'm glad that we didn't go any longer on these bad boys. So we're gonna get the stock wheels and tire size on this, and everything will feel just fine. So I'm gonna start a little bit of mechanical work, refreshing this. We're gonna do pads, rotors, and control arm bushings. So it's just gonna be a start, but again, just to get the drivability of this thing up, it will be a very good start.
So the car also had poorly repainted red calipers, and I don't like that look, so I went with silver. I covered the whole car so I didn't get overspray, but I thought this was hilarious. I was replacing the rotors anyway, so I wanted to laugh.
What I'm gonna do next is deal with making this look black again, because everything else up top is nice and black and in good condition, but this guy is purplish blue. Yeah, we're gonna get rid of all this awesome glitter too. So had an exciting past life full of glitter. Didn't break any clips because I learned how to do all this stuff, and yeah, we're doing good. So we'll get this thing out, painted.
This stuff is some of the more forgiving spray application paints or dyes that I've ever used. And this area of the car, luckily, is not something that really gets touched or used all that much. So optics here are what's most important. Halfway through here, you can see the difference between a fresh coating and the faded blue and purple that it had become. Next up here, I don't think this was the finished product because there's still a little bit of difference left to right, but before and after here, huge difference, especially through the now lighter tint. Luckily, we solved that. Now that we have everything paint matched and cured for the front bumper, it's time to assemble everything again. Also post polishing of the front bumper, starting with the trim, the fog light covers, and then the center grille piece that we didn't have at all before. That's also tricky to orientate when we're putting in. So little pegs that these slip onto, as well as metal retainers. And once it was all situated and in, it looked awesome. So paint matched, very red, and very much an improvement on before. Next up was the rotors that I had painted on. Regardless, needing to replace those because they were warped and shaking the car, looking very nice with the silver calipers this time. And then the cornerstone visually of an E36 M3, in my opinion, or at least a stock one, the factory wheels, these specifically the M contour wheels, freshly repainted and wrapped in fresh rubber as well. This was kind of the piece, I mean, I had somewhat saved it for last, but the one I'd looked forward to the most, because visually this changes everything, going from black wheels that I don't like, that also rub on the struts, to proper factory size, freshly repainted and ready to go. Finally, with my natural hair enhancement, the car is back on the ground and awaiting one final piece. The cherry on top being the OEM BMW valve stems. It was a nice look for these wheels. And suddenly, here we are at the end of chapter 1 in the book of the long list of needs that this car has. And it's a great moment. Suddenly, the car in focus looks as it's supposed to look, say, from the factory. We have the OEM wheels with fresh paint and fresh rubber. We have trim pieces paint matched and not missing or where they're supposed to be. We have a gentle finish that looks very shiny and uniform throughout the entire car. Window tint that's not too dark, and headlights that actually cast light appropriately. It was a great moment, and unfortunately it didn't last incredibly long. Things like the automatic transmission slipping were always rearing their head, but one big one really stuck out, and no, the car is not on fire. I need a head gasket, and I need a lot more than that. And chapter 2 is just starting.
Turtle Wax, dedicated to the drive.